What's up? Welcome back to the We Don't Knows podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about belt ranking. Talk about belt ranking in gi versus no gi. We're going to talk about how long it takes us to get black belts. We're going to talk about how long I think it should take us to get a black belt, and it's going to be a bunch of my opinions on a subject that we all discuss all the time. But first, I need you to leave me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed. And here we go.
What's up, guys? This podcast is brought to you and powered by Jiu-Jitsu Collective.
Belt ranking. We talk about it all the time in Jiu-Jitsu. So I came up, I wore a gi all the way into my brown belt. I no longer wear the gi. I'm with an association that does not require me to wear a gi to get my black belt. But before we get into what, if that matters, does that matter, should it matter? Like I said, this is going to be all my opinion. Let's talk about what the belt represents. To me, the belt represents time. Time spent training, time spent learning. I don't think that competition should be a requirement. Let me rephrase that. I will never require my students to compete to move up in the ranks. It's just not something I'm interested in doing. Everybody competes for a different reason. It goes right up into, why I don't agree with the gauntlet. I could probably do another video or podcast episode on that. I'm anti the gauntlet, but we can talk about that later. So the belts signify time spent. Okay. And at the beginning, I was definitely chasing belts. When you're a white belt, like you just want that blue belt, you just want that recognition, And as a blue belt, you're like, you just want that purple belt because now they're going to take you seriously. And then I got my brown belt, and there was pressure because it's almost black belt, right? So let's go into what I think each belt represents. So white belt's pretty simple. White belt is I got off the couch, I decided to try something new. And that way, when I walk in, everybody knows. Everybody knows that I'm new. That is a huge plus to, in the gi, the belt ranking system. We know that you're new. So we offer a lot of grace, and we offer a lot of help most of the time. Because we know that you're new, we know you don't know anything, you don't know etiquette, you don't know what's too rough, not rough enough, what's too passive, not passive, we understand that you don't know anything. So that white belt, it helps. Okay, so white belt is, you're brand new. You're learning the rules, you're learning how to play. Okay, blue belts now know how to play the game. Maybe you're not great at the game. Maybe you're not a great strategist, like your purple and brown belts are, but you do know how to play, the rules. And I think the main reason we end up giving blue belts such a hard time is because, like teenagers, they know the rules, but now they think that the things that they know are the only things that are important to know. However, blue belts usually represent the type of people that, like, however they do something, that is the correct way to do it, and everything else is wrong. Which is exactly, to me, how teenagers act, like they think they know everything. That's why we give blue belts such a hard time. If you look at the stats for the most, obviously we know that blue belts quit. Like, that's the number one quitting belt in jiu-jitsu. But I heard a really great piece of information a few years ago that said, on average, the adults on average start a new habit or new hobby, a new hobby every 2 to 4 years. Well, 2 to 4 years is that getting to blue belt, not making it quite to purple, and you drop out. And maybe that's just because you got other things going on in your life. Maybe you got bored, maybe you got injured, maybe you moved, maybe you started a family. It could be a million different reasons. But it is our number one belt to drop off, which is also hilarious to me because that is the belt that thinks that they know everything. My experience online running Jiu-Jitsu Collective is blue belts and people that don't train Jiu-Jitsu are the most opinionated people on what's correct and what's not correct and what will work and what won't work. And, strongest keyboard warriors, guys. Sorry, blue belts. That's just my experience with you. We can go through the comment section on so many posts on Jiu-Jitsu Collective and I can prove it to you. It's you guys. So, but blue belts do know how to play. They know how to do jiu-jitsu, and if you make mistakes, they're going to catch you. That's what a blue belt should be. Purple belt. Purple belt has started to really design their own game. I heard somebody say one time, I kind of like this. I don't completely agree with it, but I like the thought process that by purple belt, you're not going to learn much more jiu-jitsu. And I disagree with that in the way that like I really suck at some things. So I'm constantly trying to evolve my game. And I'm a 4-stripe brown belt, and my game is nothing like it was when I was a purple belt. Nothing at all. I play completely differently. I use my guard solely for sweeping. It's very rare that I shoot submissions from my guard. I don't like being stacked. 41 years old. I've been grappling for 15 years. I don't want to be stacked. My neck and shoulders hate it. So I sweep. I want to get on top, which is not the type of jiu-jitsu that I had as a purple belt. As a purple belt, I wanted to play guard and I wanted to be cool at guard. And, I thought that was cool. And submissions from the top, from bottom, like made me feel cool, made me feel dangerous. And really what it did was just get me squashed a lot. But I learned how to sweep, and I appreciate that. So purple belts, you're developing your own game. Most of the time, if you're friends with a purple belt, like what they're good at. Like they probably have a guard that they're pretty good at. It's usually the guard in my experience, but that's because, by the time you're a purple belt, you've probably spent most of your time playing from guard, depending on how your curriculum is run at your gym. Brown belts. Okay. So I'm a 4-stripe brown belt, like I said, and when I was given my brown belt, I was told this would be my hardest belt because I was going to need to learn how to smash. And I didn't have a lot of top pressure. And I really took that to heart. And now I want to be on top and I smash people. That's how I like to play my jiu-jitsu. And what I learned is that I hurt less, which is fantastic. I hurt so much less because I'm not getting stacked and smashed and things like that. But a brown belt, like you're on your way to black belt. You're almost there. Now it's just like you're really refining what it is that you do. You're really kind of like sanding away sharp edges to your technique, and you're a savage already. Like brown belts are savage. Consider this, right? So the average people that, the time that people make it all the way to black, it's that 10 to 12 year range. So like if you're a brown belt, like you could be looking at 8 years of grappling to get your brown. If we spent 2 years at every belt, so 2 years to blue, 2 more years to purple, that's 4. So 6 to 8 years, somewhere between that, 6 to, if the average time is 10 to 12 for black belt, then, you're looking at 6 to 10 years for, being a brown belt. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time grappling. And then obviously black belt is just like, now you know how to play this game. And that's where they say that like we kind of start over. And, obviously I'm not a black belt yet, but I've definitely found myself moving back towards very basic stuff. Not looking for anything fancy. I'm not looking for any fancy guards. I want to get on top. I want to smash. I want to stay on top. I don't want my guard passed. Guard does get passed. I have to be able to recover it. Like I don't like being smashed, but you're taking all of the basic information that we spent however many years gaining, and like now my jiu-jitsu game has gotten so small. I have answers to a lot of different things, but the tasks are always the same. I'm going to patch your guard. I don't want your hands and feet on me. I want to get chest to chest or chest to back. I want to maintain that connection, and I want to look for a submission. Either I'm isolating limbs so that I can access your neck, or I'm isolating limbs so that I can break them. Like very, very simple, no fancy guards. I don't spend time thinking much about that very often. I just use hooks and posts to knock people down and find ways to off balance them. So that's just my approach. And so black belt is to the, now you have this game. Now it's just polish your strongest tools while also maintaining a really good connection to the answers that you have for everything. That's my thought of each belt. So let's talk about gi versus no gi. So I mean, obviously this is my opinion. So I trained gi and no gi all the way into my brown belt. I've been a brown belt for 3 or 4 years now. So, you know, my first 2 years or so as a brown belt, I was still wearing the gi at least once a week. I don't wear it anymore. Like I said, it's because my coach doesn't require it, but I spent enough time in the gi to decide whether I liked it or disliked it. And I can't say that I dislike it. I'll put it on if that's just the situation I'm in. But I don't choose to put it on. I don't choose to put it on. I don't hate it. And honestly, nowadays, if I do put it on, my jiu-jitsu doesn't change much, except that I take advantage of a few gi chokes, but mostly like cross collar chokes and like bow and arrow choke, things like that. Nothing special. I'm not playing worm guard. I never got into that. Like, and I would use the pants to pass. It just gives me that extra grip. But I just, you know, I don't care. I don't care. I do not personally think that the ranking between gi and no gi are any different. In all honesty, I don't see the difference. And the reason is because, well, let's back up. Let's talk about real quick, like when I started jiu-jitsu, how it was always like, if you want to be good at no gi, you got to train gi. You got to train gi. That doesn't make sense. And 15 years later, it still doesn't make sense at all. At all. You have to be able to translate what's going on from one type of gripping to the next. So a collar and sleeve in the gi is just wrist control and a collar tie in no gi. It's the same thing. You know, and I find it really odd that people have this idea of like, oh, I suck at gi, I suck at no gi, you know, because I spend all my time in the other. If you all of a sudden can't grapple because your clothes are different, you have a problem. Like that's a problem to me. When you tell me that, you know, you learn gi and you should be learning the self-defense, it goes into like, how am I supposed to use it in the street if somebody's not wearing a coat? Because you're teaching people to rely on grips that are strong grips because the material used is really strong. If somebody tried to strangle me with my t-shirt, and it can be done, but if they did it wrong, my t-shirt's gonna rip. So how's that helpful? It's short sleeve. Where's your sleeve grip? You know what I mean? Like, so you need to be able to translate one to the other easily. Now, if you have a preference, you're like, I just want to train the gi and I'm not competitive, or I only compete in the gi, then do just train the gi. Like, just train the gi. If you prefer no gi, just train no gi. But to me, it's the same. The belt ranking is the same. A white belt on both spectrums is somebody who is brand new. A blue belt is somebody who now knows how to play the game. A purple belt is somebody who now is starting to develop their own game. They're developing their own style. It doesn't change. It doesn't change, right? Because I can put a gi on and I can go to a gi open mat and I can train. I'm probably going to get caught in a couple of things that like I haven't experienced in a while. That's okay. But the idea that all of a sudden I'm not going to be able to submit people is ridiculous. All of a sudden I'm not going to be able to pass guards or sweep people is ridiculous. I'm totally going to be able to do those things. And I haven't trained in the gi in like 2 years. But it's the same thing, right? Somebody takes their gi top off. I would expect them to still be able to armbar me and rear naked choke. You know what I'm saying? Like, rear naked choke works without a gi. So I just don't see the difference. Personally, I don't see the difference. I think that if you want to run your jiu-jitsu school, no-gi, and you want to promote people, do it. If you don't. If you don't like training in the gi and that's what your coach is like, I'm not going to promote in the gi, you either need to decide like, or I'm not going to promote if you don't wear a gi. You have to decide how important the belts are to you. It may not be. You may really like the vibe of the gym. You know what I'm saying? You may really like the instruction. Like, that may be where your friends are. Like, you should be doing jiu-jitsu because it's fun. I mean, so what's the matter at that point? I hope to get my black belt one day. I'm doing jiu-jitsu for 15 years. Like, understanding that, like, obviously getting a black belt isn't going to make me any better at jiu-jitsu at all, man. And I train so much no-gi, like we don't even see the ranks of people most of the time. So you just have to roll and find out, which I find kind of exciting, So gi versus no-gi, it just really doesn't make a difference to me at all. So, but let's talk about the average time it takes to get to black belt, but let's do it right after this ad. What's up, freak bananas? It's your boy here. Let me tell you a little something that is going to blow your mind. News Trading Company, whole bean coffee, Austin, Texas. I'm talking about a flavor explosion in every sip, folks. Head over to ynewstrading.com. Get ready to experience coffee like never before. Don't settle for anything less than the best. News Trading Company, where the coffee game is next level. Okay, average time to black belt. This is tricky. I've been feeling weird about this one. I heard something the other day and it just really got me thinking. So if the average time to black belt is 10 to 12 years, 8 to 12 years, I got told one time, had I gone to a Gracie Baja, like I think I've been doing jiu-jitsu for so like 8-9 years by that point. I was purple belt. And somebody who had come up through Gracie Barra was like, oh, dude, you'd be a black belt by now. Which makes me believe that that particular affiliation promotes on time, right? In attendance, okay? Okay, I guess, I can't really knock it because like when I was a kid and I did like Taekwondo, they did a ranking like every 2 months. So you get a black belt in like 2 years in that. Now I had to test for it. I had to be there a certain amount of days, but I will say that it definitely felt weird, right? To like have to address like 10-year-olds as Mr. whoever, because they were a black belt. You know what I'm saying? I understand respecting somebody who's put the time in, but like 2 years isn't a lot of time. And if I can drop kick your kid across the room, I shouldn't have to call him Mr. anything. But also, I like to be polite. So, not that kicking kids is polite, but whatever. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the year. So I would say for me, for years, following the regular belt system, I would say, I told all my guys, like, you're going to spend an average of 2 years. Like, if you're brand new with me, you're going to spend an average of 2 years, white to blue. And I would suggest 2 years at each belt. That was how it was. I've recently changed some of how I've been teaching because I'm trying to speed up the learning process. So I've been using a lot of ecological dynamics and constraint-led training. I'm seeing huge increases in skill. I got another episode, my experience of using ecological approach. I got another episode about that. You can find that. But I think 8 to 10 years is too long for a black belt, and I think it comes down to poor coaching. I think that either the coaching is poor or we're not promoting when we're supposed to. I don't know. Nobody else would brag about the fact that it takes 10 years to learn anything. And to tell me, so here's an example, right? If you take a high school wrestler, let's just say high school, 4 years, right? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, wrestle. if they come to your jiu-jitsu class, they're going to wreck your white belts, your blue belts, and some of your purple belts. 100%. They're going to do that. So how come it only took them 4 years to dominate an entire aspect of the grappling game, but it takes us 10 to 12 for us to learn the whole game? I don't know, man. I don't want to promote people quickly because I don't want to water down the sport, right? I know some blue belts that are savages. I know some purple belts that just will murder me. Okay, so obviously I'm earning my belt based on time spent and the skill developed and maybe my ability to teach, I guess. I really don't know how I've gotten each rank, to be honest. It wasn't really explained to me. I just know there was a long time in between each belt for me personally. But are we teaching poorly that our people can't progress faster than that? Because obviously, we have the stories, right? You got Kyle Terra, you got BJ Penn. These are guys that went to black pretty quickly. You know what I mean? So obviously, certain level of skill and is developed, and some natural talent, which I don't have. No natural talent for this guy. But I do wonder if we're teaching poorly. Is there a way for us to teach better? I know that there's lots of programs out there that teach differently from the traditional, like show up, drill the move on a static partner, shrimp up and down the mat, but we're seeing science that shows that it's not scientifically the best way to learn. So, I guess my goal as a coach is like, how can I just be a better coach? If you remove the belts completely and your goal is to get better, then you just show up consistently, you take good care of your body, you know what I'm saying? And you just train. And then I think that's where that idea of the white belt turns black one day, because you just kept showing up. That's just kind of my thought on it. I think belts are a great show of the work that we put in, and I think that belts show a certain level of respect, maybe extra respect that we should give people sometimes. You always want to pay attention to people that have been around longer than you, but obviously black belts aren't gods, right? I think I saw that somebody, maybe Jocko posted that, like your black belt coach is not a god, and obviously like I'm still not a black belt. I don't know everything. I'm still learning all the time, and I hope I'll get my black belt one day. Not sure I care enough to put my gi back on to get it, because I love jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to stop training no matter what color my belt is. So yeah, that's my thought. Belts are cool. They feel good to get. You should train for jiu-jitsu and not for the belt, though. 100%. Keep training. You're going to get it. Make sure you leave that 5-star review. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at We Don't Knows Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bless.